Hey, I'm Dukes on Twitch. If you want to support the channel and greensunzenith.com, you can find my Patreon, merch store, and singles store where you can buy singles through TCG Player or Card Hoarder in the video description. If you want to get in contact, you can also find all that info in the description below for things like donation deck lists or just wanting to reach out. Alright, let's get right into it. Yo, hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back today after a bit of a break, which is pretty refreshing, but I thought I'd come back and give some prep to those wanting to play potentially Maverick or another Green Sun Zenith deck at Eternal Weekend. And this list is very cool from Discord user Schryver, Schryver, and DanSteel9, who took this list to a 11th place finish in the Eco Eternal Weekend event, which is really cool and a really impressive result out of about 50 players. One quick one is that obviously the Green Sun Zeniths at the bottom are off screen, but the deck is pretty sweet. This is what you would expect traditionally from an Abzan list. Some things that are a little bit old school are the full 4th Thalia, which is obviously doing a lot of work as these players are having some really good results with the list. We have the 5 Mana Dorks alongside Dryad Arbor, of course, which is really cool. Prismatic Ending as extra main deck removal. We have both Ouphe and Teeg in the main deck as hate bears, which sometimes you'll see those fighting for the same slot in the main deck and then one in the sideboard, but it's obviously great to see both of them in the main deck, which I think is a great call with the current metagame, especially against the sort of Mystic Forge decks, where if they already have something like a ring in play or some monoliths, you want to get the Ouphe, but if they don't have anything in play, you want to probably get the Teeg, because Teeg stops pretty much everything and can't be killed by Kozilek's Command, which is a great way for them to get rid of Collector Ouphe. So typically I think Karakas is what I've seen lists have as an answer to Teeg, but yeah, it's great to have both. And then I think probably the best hate bear right now is just Keen-Eyed Curator, which is disruption, really good pressure, and can become a pretty out-of-hand threat very quickly for a lot of decks. So it's always good to see. Hey, Coderific, a huge thank you for the sub, and to Mangorg for the kind words. This, yeah, I think Abzan is just where I always love to be when it comes to Maverick. Thoughtseize, I think it's one of my favorite cards, and it's just a great way to know how to progress in the game, knowing which of your creatures are actually going to have an effect on the board, how quickly you need to actually get them onto the board, what you need to play around, what sort of removal your opponent might have, what their mana situation is like, how effective and aggressive do you want to be with Wastelands. So I think Thoughtseize fits in really well. Faerie Macabre is obviously disruption we can find through Once Upon a Time, which is really nice. It is also a creature at times I have just cast to be able to continue getting pressure on the board. Disruptor Flute is a really interesting one, and it is a card that I am becoming more and more aware of as just a really good piece against namesake decks such as Doomsday and Show and Tell. It's also just quite strong against a lot of different decks where you want to be able to sort of turn off or not have to worry about key cards at certain times. Force of Vigor, very relevant. Also just your sort of turn 0 hate or turn 1 hate against these very fast Grim decks, which is obviously where Endurance also comes in against graveyard decks. Kind of like our Force of Will, I would say, in green. Having one in the graveyard, or having one in the sideboard as well is really nice. Ramunap in the board, I've definitely been here as well. Ramunap sometimes can feel just like it isn't really needed, but in some matchups such as lands or Cloud Post, you really want to have that additional way to deal with your opponent's lands, especially when they do create more than 2 mana. Choke, obviously great against the blue decks, and just another great way to really apply pressure. Choke, yeah, has been a card that I've always loved, but at the same time I feel a lot of the decks you played against have the ability to get in creatures pretty quickly before Choke comes down, so sometimes it's a little bit awkward to be casting Choke on a board where you're behind in terms of creatures on the board, but hopefully that doesn't come up today. And then Prismatic Ending, again, just another versatile piece of hate. I think having an answer to Tamiyo on either side is really good, and Prismatic Ending is just a great one-for-one trade, hopefully with the Tamiyo, but typically, of course, they'll create some clues, create some card advantage there, so it's just nice to know that we do have a pretty simple, clean answer to Tamiyo with Prismatic Ending, which is nice. Hey, Judo Jared. I've been very much enjoying the Legacy Small Talk podcast. It reminds me a lot of the Canadian Threshold podcast, which I do miss dearly, because they are two podcasts that I feel like I can just put on and I kind of feel like I'm with you, like we're just mates hanging out, which is really nice. And I do learn a lot from your podcast as well, so I very much appreciate you guys. I think that's pretty much it. I think coming back from a break, what I do want to do is just make sure I'm taking my turns slowly and just think about all my lines and just taking the time to really tell you why I'm making the plays. Probably the best thing I can do here, but yeah, it's great to see that these two players have been getting some really nice results with this list. Right, we go gameplay. XJ, welcome. A big congratulations on your back to back with Cloud in 1v1 Commander. Very, very cool to see. And also, you and Evan did a Sky Noodle, Time of the Noodle. I forget the name of it, but you did it yesterday, and I didn't get to catch it, but I will try to catch it on YouTube. Because I really enjoy those. Even as someone who doesn't play D&T that much anymore, I learn a lot from it. Pretty nice hand if we do have if it is a creature matchup with double sword. We do have mana acceleration into turn 2 Thalia and Wasteland, or potentially turn 2, swords and Thalia. I think I'm pretty happy to keep this in the blind. Make sure that greens are all up. State of the Noodle. I got botched. Tough. That is that's really sad to hear, because it is just like a wealth of knowledge. Here we're just going to go for Savannah. I could go for, say, Bayou to get all my colors online, but I think just making sure that if the Noble dies, we can still cast turn 2 Thalia. That's where we want to be. We do have the Renegade Rallier to get back something like the Windswept Heath for potentially finding a black source as well, so... I feel like it's zoomed in a bit, but maybe not. Maybe it looks okay. Okay, there's Tamiyo. I think here we want to swords first and then play the Thalia. Obviously, double spelling here means I got to throw one of these into Daze, which at least the Thalia can be brought back with the Rallier, which is kind of nice. I could also try to once here, but if we miss a land drop off the top, we can once next turn as well, potentially. But yeah, Tamiyo is just a creature and planeswalker as a threat that I really underrated when it came out. I didn't expect it to be as good as it is. And just as game warping as it is, it feels similar to Oko, where it creates a sub-game where you have to care about it, but your opponent just gets to do their normal game plan on the side. And so once you deal with the Tamiyo, they've already set up some other board that's just a little bit too hard to come back from. Ooh, okay. Tamiyo and Green Suns. Trying to build out their mana here. So I think here it's probably worth going after their green mana and just missing the land drop this turn, so we can attack with the Thalia for 3, Wasteland the Savannah, and Swords the Dryad Arbor. Because if they're building out their mana, then I think it makes sense to go after their green sources just to turn off that ability if they do have something like a Mana Dork potentially off the top or something like that. We do get a little bit stuck under the Thalia, however, if we don't find a land for the Once Upon a Time, but I think that's fine. They obviously can't force here either because the Thalia. And the Exalted really nice here as well because it means that we can attack the Thalia into another Tamiyo if that does come down. That's pretty nice because here we get to potentially get the Bayou, play the Rallier, potentially get back the Wasteland and just keep going after their mana. Which, there are some thoughts here. If I Wasteland the Tundra now, I would expect my opponent to potentially fetch for Hedge Maze in the end step, which does give them a green source. If I allow them to untap and not allow the Hedge Mage play, they do untap with 2 mana and upkeep, which does represent Swords to Plowshares or Brainstorm. But I think I'd rather just go after the Tundra now. Hey, Carador, welcome. But it's definitely pretty interesting. I think just because 2 mana does turn on some things like Swords getting rid of the Thalia to take them away from the attacks, I think I'd rather just hit the Tundra now. And here I assume we'll see the Hedge Maze. Yeah. There's definitely pros and cons to each side, but they put a Tamiyo into the bin, so they're obviously digging potentially for mana. Huffling is fine. Grist is pretty nice. And I think here that because next turn they do potentially have land Nadu, we want to be able to still pressure them with Renegade Rallier, but then probably get rid of it to the Grist, holding back Thalia to protect the Grist. And we do want to keep the Noble for mana, I think, at this stage. So let's attack with the Renegade Rallier. Play the Grist. And I could go after their mana, which might be a little bit... There's two thoughts here. We could go after the Nomad because potentially next turn they have land Nadu. Or we could go after their mana, which they did miss a land drop last turn. And because we have been going after their mana so much this game, it makes sense in a way to do that. It's tough. I think it's probably a little bit greedy to go after the mana, but it just lines up with how we've been playing this game so much. And the Nomad, to be fair, we have more outs to because we have things like Orcish Bowmaster in the deck, which we can try to find. So I actually am going to go after mana. Yeah. And that's a great point as well, because next turn we can potentially get rid of Once Upon a Time to try to find another Wasteland off the top. Okay. So thankfully here, no, say Swords to Plowshares, attack the Grist. The Forest. We want to dig a little bit with the Grist. There goes a Knight. That's fine. We now have the Insect to block, so we can keep threatening with the Thalia. And I think here it is just try to once for another Wasteland. No. We do find an Endurance, if that is helpful. We do find a Fetch Land, which doesn't do a whole lot. I think just in case. Yeah, I don't mind the other endurance. Play the forest. Here we might see Archive just to see if they can get that third land. Or Lush Portico, okay. Put a card on top, so I assume that's going to be land fetch Nadu. Yeah, that's very true. That's a great point. We could go for the endurance line of having Keen-Eyed as the green card, which doesn't give away the information. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I think just my time away from the field means that I don't have too much of a handle on what is what. I can get rid of a creature here and then attack with the Thalia, which is lethal, so they have to block with the other one, which is nice. And if I play Ignobled out, I guess to be fair, because I thought that they had already drawn a card off the Nadu, I should have got rid of the Nomads with the Grist because it targeted and then attacked with the Thalia. A small misplay there for sure, giving them the extra card. They find a sword, but they don't have access to white. Force is fine. Okay, we can draw a card here before anything else. Ouphe doesn't do a whole lot. Get to attack with the Thalia for lethal. I honestly don't mind just casting the Endurance now. So I assume they don't have graveyard interaction in this list. And just because then they'd have to actually force pitch go to 1, which turns on Orcish Bowmasters to some extent. Pretty happy to target myself. Put those cards back, the 2 swords. This is a matchup where I do like Choke, and probably the extra Prismatic Ending as just another way to go after their mana. You can tell where some of the green decks are right now, where they just have a lot better win conditions than, say, Maverick, where like Nadu, or Dark Depths, or Natural Order. I mean, they are at 1, so they would have to swords their own creature if we draw into a Force, or if we draw into an Orcish Bowmasters. Tricky, because even a swords on the Nadu, they get a card, return it. Swords on Tamiyo, they return it, and then they still have a blocker that we can't beat. So because of that, we just want to pass with the swords. We'd go after the Nomad. Maybe that's just the play. A little bit tricky, as like potentially a way to get this game is to tease them with a Bowmaster, which obviously the sword puts them above 1 life. They're also down to 13 cards. I assume they run their own endurance, which we can see here. And they have small things as well, like obviously Nadu, but also like Karakas, their own Nadu trigger, replay it. I haven't been watching the, I know Mardu, I believe top 8'd or maybe 9th in the Eco Eternal list, which is really cool to see. It's obviously really powerful with Guide of Souls. And then even in Legacy, having cards like Cabal Therapy, Thoughts to Plowshares for early interaction. Being able to go wide in a metagame that doesn't really have Plague Engineer is pretty sweet as well. Yeah, those decks do look pretty sweet. Let me see if I can... Legacy. Yeah, I mean, like, even here... They do look really interesting because they are very low to the ground, which I really like. You can get some wins just off Reanimate on your opponent's creatures if they try to go for, like, an Atraxa or some other huge creature and then try to get it back the following turn. But yeah, Guide of Souls, Pride, and Ajani all in the same deck are obviously really good. Voice giving you some protection as well is really solid. Bowmaster is just, you see, pretty well positioned card. Oh wow, there's like a big variety of the versions as well. Yeah, okay, like here's a mono white version that 5-0'd, which is very cool to see. Some of these cards I need to read. 2 mana, 3/3 legendary creature. Whenever it or another creature or artifact you control enters, you gain a life. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if you've gained 3 or more life this turn. It's pretty sweet with Warp as well for 1. Starfield Shepherd. When this creature enters, search your library. It's nearly like Mono White Martyr in 2025. Yeah, that's great to see that like just another kind of pretty fair shell is making its way into Legacy. And one that does have a lot of modern cards in it, so players coming from modern can of course try these decks out. I mean, there are ones like Once Upon a Time, Orcish Bowmasters, quite live draws. Take out the Karakas. And then just yield. Yeah, I really like seeing this. Something a bit fresh for Legacy, which is nice. Sadly, I believe that if we go, yeah, last 30 days, and then on page 1, search for Maverick, it doesn't come up. Which, you know, to be fair, fine, but really sad. I don't think I've seen that before when Maverick's been on page 2 of like the larger pile, but yeah, great to see these players. Honestly, all of these results have been this list, which is really nice to see. Rather playing a green-white version here with Scythe Cub, which is pretty sweet. They don't have lethal just yet. They're going to swords their own creature. Make sure they don't die to potentially Orcish, I guess. Yeah, Nadu is definitely a tough one for Mav to fight against. I would say mana usually is quite a good way to do it, and I definitely tried. You can play around with like Flute, potentially. But Flute can be a little bit tough on what you actually name. Maybe you go after Nomads. Thoughtseize is really nice. I think some of the cards that we'll take out... Well, I want the 3 Thoughtseizes. I want the Ending. And I want the Chokes. Probably the Ramunap as well, just because it's a great way to keep fighting with Wasteland against their mana base. But I want to probably keep a hand with, say, 2 lands, some sort of interaction. It's like a solid plan that isn't just beat down. It has to be interaction. Wow, it got to 23 pretty quick. Prismatic, yes. Chokes, yes. Ramunap and Thoughtseize. Flute is interesting, so we'll put it in the maybe pile. I think Teeg probably slows us down a little bit more, just because it does turn off our own Green Suns. The Ouphe is a pretty easy cut. I think we can easily drop nearly 2 Endurance, as they don't really interact with the graveyard other than Endurancing themselves. Hey, Standstill. Definitely bring in the Flutes. I wouldn't bring in Choke, but you can try it. Pull it out Once Upon a Times because you're, you know, non-creatures. Yeah, I do like that of cutting some of the onces if we are bringing in so many non-creature spells. I think Teeg can probably come out. I think we could even cut down on the Thalias, but Thalias are quite nice, as if we are going after their mana, being able to tax things like Brainstorms and Ponders is quite nice. Like Keen-Eyeds, I could see just one And then maybe just cutting a Thalia. I don't mind that. I do like having a cheap bear that can get out of hand quite quickly. Okay. A little bit awkward is, as we do want to probably go for Bayou here. Bayou, Dryad Arbor, and then turn 2 we have Wasteland and Bowmaster if they go for turn 1 Dryad Arbor. The Orcish Bowmasters is also quite nice with the Cradle. Yeah, great point. I think the trample is really cool. And very cool to have you both here. Obviously, it had some really nice finishes with the deck, so I definitely appreciate having your opinions in chat. I think with this hand, we do have time to find white, and we do have a nice sort of hand of disruption, so I'm pretty happy to keep this. I think even if they lead on the lighted halfling, which obviously the Bowmaster doesn't deal with, having the Wasteland's quite nice. Good luck. Are you? Nice. Okay. So now we do have Bowmaster, which I think is an easy one. They're going to force it. And then I think here we just still want to go after that Dryad Arbor. Although it is green-green, I think being able to attack their mana in some way on this turn is pretty key. I think at this point I'm happy to get the knight in play rather than try to flute in the blind. And happy just to do that with the Savannah. I don't believe the Verdant has any additional value here because there's no Surveil Land and Dryad Arbors in play. I could see an endurance from them. I think for now we just want to hold back. I could be really aggressive. I could attack with the Dryad Arbor, and if they fetch for potentially a second green source, then I could flute name Endurance, but I don't think that does enough. I think that's kind of a waste of a flute just for 1 damage, so I think here we're just going to pass back. And most likely Wasteland and Upkeep. That's quite interesting, because that means I can take them off blue. Having a quick look at our mana base. We do have 2 Savannahs. We do have a Plains. I probably just want to fetch the Plains here and get rid of that. It also makes it a card we're not drawing into. Okay, that gives us a really good idea of how we want to play out this game. Endurance is fine. Okay. So I think here we just want to take the Nadu and then name... yeah, so I think the play here is take the Nadu, Flute on core, and then Wasteland them off blue. Because Flute on Nadu doesn't turn off Green Sun Zenith. So I think we take Nadu, Flute on core. We play the Verdant. We fetch. We get the Forest. And then we sack that to get rid of their blue source. Because they don't have another land in play. That means a cantrip off the top they can't cast. Okay, so they drew a land. One thing about going up blue is choke gets worse. I think that's fine. I think here as well, I don't mind just beat down. Put them to 10. I could also try to draw a card off the night. I actually don't mind that. I don't mind just holding back the Dryad Arbor here to block the Endurance and then trading it in for a Nurturing Peatland. Hey, Hammy, welcome. Alright, so they have two... They just have the Nomad in hand. Basic Island. Interesting. That is going to get the Nomad in play. Which is fair enough, knowing that... Well, them knowing that we have access to... Seas. I will keep the Dryad around just for now. Get the Peatland. And then use the... Actually, I don't need to even float mana here. We can just draw off the green. Okay. Okay. And I guess here we just want to attack. I should have played the Wasteland first. That was incorrect. Take them off this lush. Which does turn off if they do have another Endurance, which is nice. Okay. I think I'm happy just to Abyss them. Attack each turn. Make them have to block with something. And then I probably just want to hold the Karakas for now and not show it. I do run FBB in paper. Do like FBBs. I would like to change them all to German. But I take what I can get. Okay, so now they do have access to Endurance potentially, but that's going to be it. I think we're just going to run this back. Didn't really see anything that changes how we want to play. I think just making sure that we are respecting the early game and having answers to either the combo or their mana Choke a little bit more sus on the draw, but I think that's fine. I think Choke just can have a bigger impact than some of the cards. I meant to change out the Hierarchs as well. Typically like to go with original print. But yeah, I think that game was just good mana denial, which can help against Nadu, but they do have ways to obviously get out of that. But hey, a huge thank you to all of you for coming in and watching. Very much appreciate it. Apologies for the a few misplays in this match so far, but we'll stamp them out. I also have a new article coming out tomorrow. Big thank you to Shriver, Stancil, Mark, Strassman, and Lorak for the help with those. Just giving some insights into Eternal Weekend, Green Sun's options, and what to kind of expect if you are wanting to take Maverick to Eternal Weekend. Yeah, the flutes are really nice. Especially with Flash, being able to respond to something on the stack, like a Planeswalker, is obviously really appealing. Really cool card. Yeah, one thing I really like about the 5 Exalted Mana Dorks is that it does make Thalia a little bit easier to attack into, say, a Tameo, and a few other things. Hey, Connor, very cool to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're still grinding that 4-color life. I always appreciate it and appreciate your deck lists. Nice. That's a very nice break take. Always really nice to come back to a kind of a fresh start. Blue Black Painter, very cool. That sounds shenanigans. I feel like my opponent is away from the computer because they took all that time to sideboard and now they're also going down on clock, so eventually they had a package to pick up. See how we go. Hatchery is sweet. I just played like a little game yesterday against a Pox player, and Hatchery was really good, especially with like Wasteland, Smallpox. Quite hard for me to deal with. Honestly, like Maverick against X1s, especially Flyers, just doesn't really line up outside of Bowmaster sometimes trading with 1 and Endurance being able to block 1. But they were able to just like swing for like 8, 7, 6, 5, you're dead. Yeah, it's a tough one. But yeah, Hatchery is a sweet card. I feel like I want to play it in something. I'm just not sure what I play it in. Very true. It does make Murktide less scary. That's a great point. I wonder if potentially because of that, especially for blue-red Delver, if we see a card like End the Festivities come back into sideboards. Because I haven't seen a sweeper in the sideboard of blue-red in a long time. And I wonder if that's because of cards like Cutter being able to get so big and wide that they feel that's a great way to make players chump block, and so they don't need a sweeper anymore. Because typically you see the 4 bolts, and then you might see someone Holy Heats, or maybe like a Dismember in the main deck. but I haven't seen like a Pyroclasm or an End the Festivities or anything like that in sideboards for a long time. Yeah, it's really great to see some of these lists come out. Verdant Mav, 2/3, but still, I love the thought. Okay, so it is a Nadu deck, but isn't a full Nadu deck. Playing Bright Glass, to find Shuko, and then obviously your other 1-drops, like Safekeeper, Reclaimers, Mums, Knights, or Mums, Nobles. That's pretty cool. We're in 9th place here with Morlock, Punishing Fire. Hell yes, old school. Hey, and then a Rampaging Yao Guai? I haven't seen this card played, but I do think it is very cool. Because for 3 mana, it just destroys all zeros. Which is obviously great against... I've been seeing a bit more of an affinity deck come about. Constructs, Pro Mox, and etc. Being able to just deal with those off a Green Suns, or of course, pump into it naturally, is pretty sweet. This must be a Saga version itself. It is. This looks a bit like a Punishing Saga of Strash Daddy. Yeah, it obviously looks like our opponent has just done something. But that's all good. I think the issue for me right now with Mav is that after playing, say, Cradle Control with Natural Order or Depths with Depths, it can be tough going back to a deck where you really have to grind out that combat damage and win. Typically, you do get some concessions, but it can be really tough to be used to having like a oops, I win button and then not having one. Pretty tough, but this list looks really cool, and it ticks all the boxes that I love about Abzan, especially Bowmasters. Bowmasters with cards like Cradle, and cards like Grist, just having that extra creature to get rid of in the token gives you that little bit of advantage that you need on a deck like this. That's a great point. Yeah, Scythe Cat or Scythe Cat. I shouldn't say Scythe Cat. I believe it is Scythe Cat. Hub is a great way to try to get that sort of oops I win element into the deck. I do find that your 2-drops like Thalia, Gaddock Teeg, Collector Ouphe are less stop signs and more speed bumps these days, but I feel like potentially Teeg against Forge before they get a 4-drop down can be game-winning game 1. But I believe they do play Karakas. Forge. Maybe not. Maybe it just has to be through Fleshraker that they win. I don't believe they have another way to get rid of Teeg. Yeah, maybe it's trying to win through Fleshbreaker and Tez. Yeah, that's true. Cloudpost is another good one. True Futurism has been playing around with a few different builds. I'm not sure if the blue build plays Karakas or not. I would assume it still does, but I will have a quick look. I know Marcus has been doing well with a lot of these versions. Yeah, I actually don't see a Karakas. I guess there isn't a real need for it right now. But that's just really surprising to see. It's just, yeah, just like good Cloudpost mana and not so much of a... obviously, there's no crop rotation. That makes sense. So you would have less of a utility package in your lands. Wow. I never thought I'd see the day, but... Interesting, they're playing 62 as well. I wonder if that was a sideboard thing. I kind of just feel like my opponent put 2 cards into the deck and then had to go do something. That's a great one. Think into Stupor, or Sink, sorry. Think into Stupor is a great way to deal with Gaddock Teeg. I guess you do need, what, 2 blue, which you can get off the 2 islands and the 4 planars. I would like to get together like a few people like Harry, Mark, Achilles, or some of the more active players in the Maverick Discord and do a bit of a talk about Mav. Sometimes it's hard just to do it on video or written. Sometimes it's just nicer to do it through audio. Easy 1-0. Yeah, I think that matchup is a challenging matchup for sure. The post-board I do feel a bit better. But it is tricky how they can just, for 4 mana, play the Nadu, play the Nomad, go. I see a lot of Nadu players sort of bank either Nadu or Nomad until they have both and then play them out in the same turn, instead of trying to play them over multiple turns if they can. That makes it just that little bit harder to interact with them. I think if Hatchery comes around, there's a few other matches where I like it, but Zealous Persecution is always a pretty fun card, which is a white and a black for an instant. All your creatures get +1/+1, and all your opponent's creatures get -1/-1. There's a very famous Maverick vs. Rug Delver SCG finals match that I believe it was SCG, that had a really nice Zealous. But it is also tough. I mean, now we have Orcish Bowmasters, we have Plague Engineer. There's a lot of cards that can be in that same slot, which just make a little bit more sense being creature-based. Yeah, that's fair enough. Ooh. Pretty tough. This is kind of like the Manamorphose effect, where you're not too sure what the card could be, or like, say, a Stormlist having Git Probe, you just don't know what the onces could be. This isn't like the worst hand to keep, because you do have 2 spell lands. You have a land that could potentially turn into a spell. You have good mana. You have a way to find a free creature most likely, and then a backup one for once. But I generally go with the census that you should have a plan from your opening hand, and because that this hand doesn't give away too much, I don't know what that plan is. So I think this is a mulligan, unfortunately. This is a tough one because you really have to find a green source with the once. I think going down to 5 is a little bit sus. So I think here I could just keep this and pitch a Prismatic Ending and then hope the once hits. I think Windswept Heath would be the best hit, or another fetch land. So I'm happy to see where this goes. But I have relied on once one too many times and just not hit. It might not matter, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, they're passing? I did not expect that. Interesting. I wonder here if it's better to try to once into a white source to take out the ending, or to take out the Chromox, than it is to go after the city. This just gives me a feeling that they have more soul land type effects, but less red sources. We will go with once, because that'll give us a better understanding as well if we do find a white source. We don't. Okay. So I think, sadly, we just have to go with the other play of go after their mana. But I would have loved to have found a white source there for Prismatic Ending. Because now they have access to potentially Chromox. Oh, it's going to be Initiative. Fourth. That's pretty good. Hmm. One, two. Hmm. This makes me think that they do have another soul land for like a big 4-drop. Which I don't have a great answer to. Like, even if we Green Suns for Dryad Arbor, get a creature on the board. I think it's just a bit too tricky. Because although I would like to get onto the board with Dryad Arbor, I'm not sure that it does enough. I kind of feel like we have to Wasteland just to see if they miss a land drop. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the best bet. Try to just get something on board and then rip the white source to deal with this if they do have a... they don't have another creature. The way they played makes me think they have Ancient 2. Hmm. Lands come in tapped. So I think playing Cradle here is best, because then we can get Endurance. Well, I guess we can't Endurance for a while. Just... no, okay, that's all good. I thought the Endurance came in tapped as well. Yeah, definitely a challenging matchup, especially if they can get a threat onto the board and just protect it. Hmm. I think we can just go to the next game. I do like some number of Force. Thoughtseize on the play is always pretty interesting because I feel like their hand can be a little bit glass cannony. Teeg can be an easy cut. Thalia is most likely. I like that the Bowmasters can go around them. I don't mind having access to one Endurance, but I don't really want to see too many more. I think it might just be the Thoughtseize. Okay. Just in case they're a Blood Moon deck, it is nice to have the Forest. A little bit land heavy, but does have a bit of play to it, which is nice. Okay. Double 4th. Yeah, I was thinking about the 3rd 4th. But just because they're not too disrupt, like there are definitely starts like this where the force isn't that great. That I do like having access to more than one, but I don't want to have more than two in my hand at any given point, most likely. They do pitch to each other, but I think just getting rid of the Fury here. Maybe not this early. Maybe it's like, what am I really scared of? Even a soul land off the top doesn't do anything, which is nice. Hey, thank you very much, Stan. Could just be the Fable this turn and then Fury down the line. And maybe not even play the forest next turn. Well, they drew. Okay. Okay. Drew a Siege and Dungeon. Let's take the Fury. Two, 5. Play the Savannah. I will keep the fetch land just because of Dryad Arbor potentially being a way to interact. I wonder if they try for 1/4 here. Ooh, Renegade Cave. I think here I like attacking with a Noble and then using Orcish to finish it off. I could also try to Orcish here and then go wide. But I think I'd rather get rid of the cave if possible. Okay. Don't think we kept Teeg in. Yeah, sadly. Maybe a little bit of a oversight, given that they have 4th Hierolingus. We have 2, 4, 5, 6 mana, which is attack with Noble, that leaves 5 mana. Orcish leaves 3, which is, to be fair, that is search for a Keen-Eyed Curator. We could also Grist. And we do have a Plains, which we can go and grab. So it's either Grist, get rid of the cave, but then the following turn, they do just make 2/2s with 4th, kill the Grist, and take the initiative. But then we can take it back. I do like that Keen-Eyed is a 3/3. Quite tricky. I think I do like getting onto the board with Keen-Eyed. It is appealing to get the Grist to trade with the caves, but I also like that this deals with the cave, gives us creatures, and then also allows us to get Keen-Eyed, which to be fair, now we have blockers for 2 tokens. Sadly, we have Teeg in the board. Yeah, that was the oversight. We currently have 4 types, so maybe this Keen-Eyed could go the way. No. Interesting. Happy to attack. We gain the initiative. Play Grist. I mean, they can currently make 3 tokens for 5 tokens. Yeah. Don't think we have like a single out. Very tricky. Yeah, I think maybe having the Teeg could be a thought. Like maybe in the board they have extra pyrokinesis on top of Furies. It could also be a world where we don't take the Fury or the Fable and just take the 2. Really tough because what do they have? 2 initiative creatures, 2 forts, Fable, Fury. Sometimes Thoughtseize can be a bit rough because you get to see how you just don't have a chance. Yeah, I think there is definitely an amount of luck that you need to get for a deck like Initiative. Even for Nadu, another just creature-based match that has a lot more value. Alright, on the play, which is nice, and pretty happy to keep. Get to once. Turn 2, depending on what they do, if they're a combo deck, it's probably either Ouphe or Teeg. If not, it might just be trying to go for a Keen-Eyed and get that into play. Start with the once. I guess Thalia is actually quite nice here. As like a just in case we don't want to Green Suns. It does obviously tax us pretty heavily here, but it is something we can't Green Suns for if we really want access to it. Lush Floods. Thing. maybe like an Echo deck. Big Chromox decision. Oh, it's going to be a gamble. Okay. English. Very black. Interesting. Ah, maybe a Beseech. Hmm. I don't think I have a way to gain life in the deck. I guess swords, but I'm also not going to show black. Block 1, take 9, go to 10. I think this Arbor I have to keep around. Sadly, don't have a 1-drop that will allow us to do anything. By Keen-Eyed, I block 3, take 6, go to 4, lose a blocker. Maybe we try. I guess we get the buy because Orcish Bowmasters is actually a pretty great draw. Go for Ouphe. Block 1, block 2. Think we have to block here. We take 6, we go to 3. They have 6 left. We have 2. Maybe? I think we have to block with the Noble next turn as well. I mean, Orcish off the top would be huge. No. One, 2, 4. And then before damage, eat LED. Go down to 1. But then 3 and 3. Can't use that. I can attack this turn and then throw away the Noble. But I think I'm actually happy to start getting aggressive here just to close out the game. Now. Land. Sure. I guess I could have just eaten the Dryad Arbor. Wow, we actually did it. Well, it's not over yet, but I have to imagine. Wow. Ow. Okay. Forces, yes. Thoughtseize, yes. Flutes, yes. Swords out. Knight can go down to 1. Grist can come out. Probably the extra endurance. I think I'm happy with that. I don't want to do choke on the draw. And I think that like 2 Prismatics is more than enough alongside the Force of Vigors. Okay. Come on, Thoughtseize. Turn 2 Thalia. No free spells like Force, which may be where you need to be in this day and age against a deck like Storm. But at least if they Thoughtseize us, we have 2 Thoughtseize. And this isn't Veil mana, which is better for us as well. Okay. Let's fetch up Bayou. There is a world we actually want to get. We should have gone for Savannah here, because Savannah means turn 1 Thoughtseize, and then turn 2 if we draw a Wasteland, but they play something like a Chromox, you can Prismatic and Wasteland in the same turn. So I do think that this is actually a mistake using Wooded Foothills to find Bayou, because Windswept Heath finding Scrubland is probably better. I think it's just the LED, because obviously, interesting they didn't gamble for Echo. Maybe they're not an Echo deck. And although we do have an answer for Lion's Eye Diamond, we won't have an answer before it actually does something. So rid of the ritual. Found Interesting. Okay, so this is exactly that situation. Imagine if we draw Wasteland here. Okay, we don't. That's a pretty good draw. I think that's better than anything else we have. It also turns off those echo lines. I wonder if they play Massacre. Echo. Interesting. I think in that case right now we just want to go for Teeg. Next turn, Thought-These and Thalia. Very fortunate with our opening here. Being able to disrupt every turn and now have multiple pieces of disruption. Both of these two do turn off the echo line. Oh, they do have Massacre, but we have Gaddock Teeg. Nuts. I think we start with Thoughtseize. Don't really care about any of this, but I think we just take the Massacre in case they find a bounce spell for the Teeg, and then we just play Thalia. And now we're living. Magic intended. Weather report. Clear skies with no change. Very cool. Yeah, very fortunate there with the opener. I mean, to have a way to play around Thoughtseize and having double Thoughtseize, and then Thalia Green Suns obviously for either Teeg or Ouphe, and then an opponent also having an opening that was quite open to Force of Vigor if we drew it. It's quite nice. A card that you can't cast when Teeg is in play, which you do need to be aware of. So there are definitely some matches like Forge, where if you have a Teeg in play and you draw a Force, sometimes the Teeg is doing worse things for you, but thankfully we do have access to cards like Karakas, which of course you can Karakas in your turn, replay the Teeg. But it can be really, really tough. Dex felt strong. Dex felt really cool. One card I have always thought about is Dryad Militant, which is a hybrid green or white for a 2/1. And if an instant or sorcery card would go to a graveyard, you exile it instead, which I don't think is that well positioned, but it obviously keeps, say, a Murktide off the board, most likely. Life in the Loam gets exiled. Punishing Fire isn't played too much, but say for cards Punishing Fire and Lightning Bolt, it does deal damage, get exiled, and then the Dryad Arbor leaves the field, which is kind of nice. But it's always on my mind, especially as just a card that I can find off Green Sun Zenith that isn't a mana dork for 1 mana. It's kind of cool. Yeah, rip Punishing Fire. Maybe one day. Pretty nice hand here. I would say it's kind of a 6 in a way because Ouphe or Swords. Swords less likely, but Ouphe could be sort of not really play a role in many matchups. I'm pretty happy to keep like a 3-lander with the ability to accelerate. Ooh, Post. Okay. So here we have pretty nice start because this Ouphe might be playable if they do something other than hold up 2 mana next turn for the map. Nothing. I think I have to play this to be able to just potentially draw a card next turn. I assume here they go and get the Plano Nexus. We attack for 1. Five mana. They'd probably name Wasteland here. Yeah. Try to draw into something relevant. Okay. Should have played a fetch there just so we could potentially hold up the Bowmaster. We pretty much have to Prismatic Ending into Wasteland. Okay. Flutes for Planeswalkers. Yeah, I'm not too sure what our what our chances are here, but draw Flutes, Thoughtseizers, Horses, Ramunap. Swords can probably come out. I don't know if they play creatures. Quick look. Yeah. Some do. Yeah, Wasteland Teeg. Like Bowmaster seems pretty horrible. Assurance isn't really needed. Hey, Nostalgia, welcome. I'm glad. Keen-Eyed is a bit there, but Hidebinder. Yeah, maybe I keep 2 swords. Something like this. Yes. I don't really know. Double Wasteland, but no mana is a pretty easy mull. Okay. Keep this and probably bottom the Cradle. Bayou. Okay, 2 rings. Pick one. Teeg's pretty sweet here, but it does turn off a fair bit of our own stuff, so we do need to think here just for a second. Like, do we want to ramp here with Green Suns? They do have an Otawara, but I think I'd rather use this Green Suns to accelerate on mana and then Teeg next turn. Interesting. Find a map. I think we take the map because the One Ring is currently covered by both Teeg and Flute if needed. They have access to 4 mana, potentially 6 mana, which isn't enough to both bounce and play Ring in the same turn. But I think I'd rather just take the map and then play the Teeg here. Find the island for Otawara. That's pretty tricky. I guess I could play Flute right now. Because I can name Otawara, which might force them to bounce it, but then we can just replay it now. Ooh. Is this the best use of it? Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated. And I don't want them to activate this, so I think that just makes a lot of sense. Still want to play this out. Ah, Bowmasters for the ring. That's very true. Karakas is quite good. Yikes. Drifter. Took out Teeg, didn't we? Sorry, Grist? Maybe not. But we can't Green Suns with Teeg on the field. And we can't attack either. Okay, so like here we get to go... Maybe it's not even worth... But we could hardcast Force Wasteland once, but is that really worth it? Take out a Cloud Post. Or even take out the Karakas. The Teeg, I feel, is actually doing less for us. Three, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. I do have to deal with Karakas at some point, so I might as well deal with it now. Then, like, even the Null going after my mana, I just don't really see an out. Like, even if we draw Cradle, it's just, yeah, even there, it's... The Flutes there are really, really big, because turning off Wasteland is obviously our main way to interact. But even like the island off the top for the Otawara, just really tough, because then we have to use a Flute for Otawara most likely. But hopefully we can finish this 3-2. Also just an awkward one with Thoughtseize, because taking one ring of 2 doesn't really disrupt them in the way that you probably need to disrupt them in the early game, like taking a map or like a stock up, or just one of their ways to potentially not miss a land drop. Whereas we did already have some pretty decent answers for one ring in Teeg. Yeah, the Bowmasters there make a lot of sense, and keeping those. Okay. Pretty happy to keep this. There's a little bit of play to it. We can lead on a fetch to play around Wasteland, and then we have a fetch land around for the Rallier. I think here I'm happy to take the draw. I could just go for 2 basics here, but I kind of like getting Thalia into play. They want to daze it, we have Renegade Rallier to get it back. And at least here it was Unholy Heat into Brainstorm, so they can't say play a land and fetch here. I think here it's just going to be land into Prismatic Ending. I was going to say, very interesting if they allow us to untap with this mana. I think in response here, I'm happy to try to Bowmaster this token. Must have a removal spell. Okay. I think I'm okay with that. Yeah, we just have to make sure we draw the right half of the deck against this sort of deck. Like finding a Swords to Plowshares would be pretty key. Here, if we just get to chump a turn with the token, feels like a pretty great turn for us. I've never found them a walk in the park. I think they're very, very powerful. And there's a reason why they do top 8 challenges a lot. We do have the tools to beat some of their plays, but we have to find them out the ability of cantrips or things like Force. I have 3 cards here. I should have Bowmastered there. That was just incorrect. Sorry. That's on me. Okay. That's nice. I believe they only have the one trop. think our best draw as well is most likely Cradle. So I do want to. I mean, I'd love to respect days, but I feel like at this stage of the game we can't disrupt days or respect. We just have to play into days. The thoughts are Noble and then hold up Orcish Bowmasters. Green Suns right now for Keen-Eyed Curator, and then next turn have mana for it. Play Teeg to play around Force, but don't really care about Force at this stage. I didn't need to fetch here. I actually didn't mean to press fetch. I meant to just hover over it. But here we are. I think we just hold back. A little bit tough as well to not hit a Wasteland to take them off this trop, to keep them off being able to cast multiple questing druids. They have 3 cards and they have to attack with the ERC. A Murktide. Tough. Correct, Swords is the only life gain main deck. Have to deal with the Murktide. Ooh. I think it's going to be the Grist. Could go down to 3, but that puts me in bolt range. I think sadly we just have to... Could just be the Noble here. I think the mana might be... kind of like this because like a chump on the 3/3, but then they have to cast something to keep the Questing Beast at least alive. Okay. I think, yeah, like the surprise endurance just kind of has to be it. It does give them the ability to cast a Murktide main phase 1, but can't really beat that anymore. Also pretty good. Prismatic. I like the chokes. I like the extra endurance. Teeg can come out. Ouphe can come out. I don't want to change too much else. Probably a knight. Then maybe just one Thalia, seeing we're bringing in a fair amount of non-creature. Yeah, Ramunap's definitely a thought. Just be able to recover from a wasteland. Maybe Ramunap's better than... Thalia in the play, though, is quite cool. However, we boarded. Okay. Pretty happy with this as well. Mana acceleration, interaction. Pretty happy to hear to go Bayou into Noble. And that just turns on the most lines, because if we draw Wasteland, we can say like Bowmaster and Wasteland same turn. Happy to save a black source with this Windswept Heath. Forked Bolt would be pretty tough, but I haven't seen Forked Bolt in a long time. Okay. I think because Bowmaster doesn't answer that much else, I'm happy to try to get Bowmaster in play. Deal with the DRC. And attack with the Noble. I was going to say what we don't have access to right now is a great answer to Murktide, but obviously that sword is 1. Now we'll probably see Thundering. Days makes sense. Wasteland can take away the black, which means now we just have Ignoble Hierarchs to deal with. It's quite a good draw. Because now we can do that in their upkeep. I mean, a bolt and a token as well is more than fine. Graveyard. Clips, very nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. Nice to be back. I definitely feel a little bit stunned in terms of power level compared to some of these other decks, but it does feel really nice. Playing some pretty fair Magic. Wow. Back to Thalia. We do have lethal on board with this endurance, so they do need to find some sort of removal spell. Yeah, I wonder if they were just getting down too low that they felt they had to deal with the actual threat. Yeah, that is pretty interesting to not go after my mana after they have been going after my mana. But maybe they felt I just got too far into my mana. I think just because of that game, I probably do want the Ramunap in here. We do have the Rallier to get back a black source, but potentially I even just trim on a choke, like on the draw. I do like Thalia's first strike, so I don't want to trim down too much on those. It does kind of force things a little bit more heavy. This is a tricky one because it is a one-lander. It does have onces, but I typically like to have at least 2 lands and a removal spell in hand against Delver, or these decks, because it can just be too risky to kind of play the fair line of just playing creatures when they have like DRC or a go wide strat with Cutter, that you really want to have a little bit more of a plan. It looks like a Rug DRC Corey deck. Like Rug Murktide. Okay, still pretty good. Keep this bottom. Maybe a Green Suns. I think I actually like having the additional creatures. It is still a one-lander, but it does have removal, which is nice. I did want to get 2 white sources in play, but maybe there's a case of playing the Ignoble so we have access to a little bit more in terms of like drawing into Orcish Bowmasters. Put a Graph Cage in the bin. Yeah. I could try to take them off red and double Hierarch here. I could try to get the Keen-Eyed into play. I think I'd rather try to get double Mana Dork into play, but potentially not Wasteland because that land could be better for us to play around Days. I think if I could deal with the DRC as a 1/1 with Orc, I would go there, but yeah. I think this is a line of Hierarch so they can't Daze, and then Wasteland the Panic. Again, really nice time for potentially Cradle to show up. That'd be pretty sweet with the Keen-Eyed. Yeah, sadly these starts can be really, really hard to come back from. Okay, but just the one attack. Kind of nice. Okay. Okay. I think then here it's a case of play the Keen-Eyed. And then pass. I do just want to hold up Sword around Days. Can't do anything there. Hey Deft, thanks for the follow. Hope you're doing well. Hope you get to enjoy Legacy yourself. Hey, a huge thank you for the raid. I very much appreciate you. What did you just play and how did you go? Almost feel like I want to just take this off the table, but I really want to keep the sword for something like a Murktide, but who knows if a Murktide's even coming down. I think just trying to buy time is pretty nice. And even if they have a daze, like at least it's happening in combat and not before the other Corey Steelcutter could do anything. Yeah. But at least like next turn I'm definitely just green sunning for Keen-Eyed as well. If we draw a land, I do want to go for Endurance, which is great against their Wasteland, sorry, their Graveyard and also their tokens, so I think trying to get the days out of their hand is fine. Now we can just hope. Have 2 cards. Endurance. Them. Wow, no attacks. I did not expect no attacks. Go after their red source. Play a land. I can attack here. Like the nobles aren't really blocking. Hey Akaleth, welcome. I'm sad to hear that the VOD of the Sky Noodle had some issues, but hopefully you find a fix. Okay. We do have Dryad Arbor here if we really need it. What was the actual issue? Did Twitch not save it? Or was there like a an issue with something else? Or another Corey Steel Cutter? Back with all. Block a 3/3. Big 5. I'm gonna hold the Cradle as an unknown. Okay, so they only have one card in hand, and they put a land onto the bottom. Sure. Imagine choke. Ooh, okay. Another Green Suns. Interesting. Keen-Eyed would be land creature instant. Knight would be quite big. 1, 2, 3. Could also go for Ramunap, but I think on this board that's just not as great. Have a quick look again. It could be Renegade Rallier, get back Keen-Eyed, but then we go to 3, which is obviously in bulk territory. I think Knight is just the best. Knight can also get Nurturing Peatland if we really need it. That's really tough. I have found that issue before, which can be pretty annoying to say the least. I think it's Knight. And then we get to attack. And then the Knight could potentially get a Talon Gates if needed. Interesting, they're going to double block. Pretty happy to hit the one that's enabled twice. I think that's a pretty good trade on our behalf. Okay. Again, I don't want to go to 3. Ooh, okay. Does help a little bit. Yeah, that's true. That's true. We could attack first just to be able to have the option of Renegade Rallier for Revolt if we wanted it. Because having the extra body with Keen-Eyed is quite nice. Really good point. So the Knight here isn't turned on until I know that they don't have Bolt in hand. Which then might allow me to go for a Talon Gates to potentially then attack. Oh, they're going to daze it. Okay, that makes sense. Just to maybe, do they have like double days? Or get the land back so that they can replay it? Okay. Now they have land unknown. Can I attack this turn? So, Corey Steelcutter is whenever you cast your second spell each turn. And they do have trample, so I don't actually think there is a great attack here to try to get like chip damage in. I think I'd rather just play it safe and take it back. If this was a 2/2 potentially. Okay. Can you imagine Wasteland on Verdant Catacombs? That would be pretty funny. Just to make me think that like they have the bolt. Okay. I think here we go for Ramunap. Back Wasteland. Wasteland there. Source. Kitchen Pinks would go hard. Two cards, one's a land. I feel like here we get to attack with Ignobled. Get in that little chip damage. There is also the thought of having the Savannah from the graveyard so we can turn on the night without going down to bolt range. Okay. They have played a land for turn, so they can't bolt us this turn, which is quite nice. Question is, do they find like a Mishra's Bauble? Something of that effect. Five, 6, 9, 11. We have it, I believe. Because we get to fetch here. Got a 3. Get a forest. Get rid of this. Go and get Talon Gates. Phase out their token. And then we have 12. Baseline that, that's fine. Don't care about that. Untap. Don't need to play anything right now. Attack. Nice. Very cool. We finish 3-2. Which isn't too bad. What did we play against? We played against Bant Nadu, we got up. Red White Initiative, we went down. Storm, we went up. Mono Blue Post, down hard. And then 2-1 Rug Delver, or Rug Type. That's pretty cool. Yeah, very true. That is a tough one for them with the Brainstorm. But the choke, they're doing a lot of nice work, especially to put us in a position where we could play around Bolt to get the Talon Gates. Yeah, deck was sweet. The Prismatic Endings came up a lot, which is nice. In pretty much every matchup, it was relevant. Even for Storm, being able to get rid of a LED if we needed to. Pretty sweet. Having both Teeg and Ouphe as well was great. I felt like at times Teeg did just fight against our hand a little bit, but that's just going to come with it when you have cards like Force of Vigor in hand or Green Sun Zenith, but fine. Keen-Eyed was nice. I did miss the Surveil. I just really like the Surveil land, but I also really like lands that come in untapped. So I can definitely see why these players have been doing it without the Surveil land. And to success as well. I would say it's probably in the slot of the Nurturing Peatland. Yeah, I think if you have the Surveil land, you play a little bit differently, knowing that you have it. But there have been times where I played Surveil lands in games and like drawn it, and it's like I needed that to be untapped. Like if that was the land that it was going to be. But it is really nice to have some control over the top of the deck. Like I'm still a big fan of Sylvan Library, but I can see why it just doesn't have the same value as other cards in the format right now. Maybe not even right now. Maybe in the last like few years, it's just a card that obviously you need to untap with. Yeah, I think the Surveil land, like I wouldn't blink if someone did have a version with the Surveil, because it is just really strong, and it does have some smaller upsides. Like you can potentially Surveil another land into the bin to make Knight out of bolt range, or with Keen-Eyed Curator potentially put something like Grist in the bin, which is obviously a Planeswalker. There's a few little like tweaks that it has, which is pretty sweet. Even trying to get an extra land into the bin for Ramunap, like trying to find that Karakas or the Cradle. The board was pretty sweet. I didn't really feel like we didn't have tools for any of the matchups we faced. The flutes were nice. I think it's probably just my understanding of matchups that I need to be better at in knowing what to name with the flute, what to sideboard. Like obviously taking out the Bowmasters against the mono blue version isn't great with one of their sort of, maybe not win cons, but engines being the One Ring. That's yeah, a pretty big consideration. That's me. A huge thank you to you all for coming in and watching. This will be embedded in an article I'm posting this weekend with some help from the two players who are playing this deck, some thoughts from Mark and Lorak on Green-White Maverick as to what to take to Eternal Weekend. So definitely keep an eye on that on the greensunzenith.com. But that's pretty much it. A huge thank you as well to Def Jad for the raid and all of those who came in from their stream and continued to view. I'm going to see who else is streaming. It looks like no one. There's a paper modern. There's a modern paper event. Look, mate, I'm not going to bring it up all the time, so you just have to take it when you get it. But yeah, a big thank you again. Enjoy your weekends. I'm going to raid Impact Gaming Center. I'll catch you all soon.